this time, I'd like to open the meeting. The Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte and the governing body of all other special assessment and taxing districts for which said board so acts is now meeting in regular session. Only those items that indicate a specific time will be heard at the assigned time. All other items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate the public and staff availability. Items followed with the double asterisk indicate material is attached in the agenda packet. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance that was going to be led by our county council, so we will let Ian have the honor. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It sounded terrible to me. Introduction of new employees today. Seeing none, we'll move on. Report of any actions from closed session by county council.
No reportable action.
Thank you. At this time, we have an item that came up subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and that is Supervisor Martha McClure, who has been appointed to the Coastal Commission, needs to be sworn in.
Not sworn in.
Yes, sworn in.
Yeah.
Could I have a motion to...
I'd move to add that to the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second adding it to the agenda, and I think we'll take it right this minute.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Gerry, does that?
I think we have to add to the agenda though first, don't we?
We just did.
We did did we vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Yeah.
Hello.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. It is added to the agenda.
Thank you.
Now we are.
Okay. Do you, raise your right hand. Do you, Martha McClure, solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California, and that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter?
I do. I'm now official, and I feel like a kid in waiting for Christmas because tomorrow's the first meeting. I've been just preparing and preparing and preparing. And it's pretty exciting, so I hope to do Del Norte County proud.
I can't wait for the first time when you tell the rest of the Coastal Commission that they are violating the oath that you took when you're standing up for something.
Yeah.
I'll carry it with me.
Do we have any corrections or deletions at this time from board members to the agenda? Hearing none. Scheduled items. Receive other brief reports or announcements relative to Del Norte County programs and projects, progress of 2x2 committees, goal committees, and or board and staff travel training reports. Supervisor Sullivan, would you start, please?
Sure. I had a meeting with Terry Sapanhan with the Smith River Rancheria and a writer that was in town regarding tribal and county projects. Attended the tri-agency meeting, also attended a chamber board meeting, and met with state parks earlier this week, or excuse me, last week regarding input into the overall. They're going to redesign Jed Smith Park, which would include walking trails and stuff, and it would change the entrance to the park. Get the visitor. Right now, the visitors section or the visitor station is on the left side of the freeway, opposite of where Jed Smith's at, and it's just a bad setup right now. So they're going to move the visitor center to the right side and actually gain additional parking, or excuse me, campgrounds that right now we lost when they capped 40% of their sites. So, and it would also give a lot more walkable community in IUG and tie the community in with the park. So, really positive thing. So they're in right now getting input and come up with a design, and then after that point, go out and get funding to actually pay to have it built. So So really a good meeting on that. Attended the Redwood Coast Transit Authority meeting, and a bigger part of the month attended CSAC, California State Association of Counties quarterly meeting. Got a lot of information on the realignment, and obviously it comes down to the dedicated funding source, and the counties are going to take these responsibilities on. There has to be a constitutionally dedicated funding source, otherwise we don't have the money, we can't do it. And I think everyone is on agreement on that. Governor Brown came and spoke to the group regarding some of the same stuff. On a side note, I went and met with the current executive director, John McNamer, of Fish and Game, in regards to several complaints we've been receiving regarding a local game warden and his overzealousness. Also met with the chief warden, Nolan, and hopefully we reached some kind of agreement or on the same page. Had a chance to meet the executive director of CAL FIRE as well. Right now, those two appointments for Fish and Game and CAL FIRE are kind of up in the air. So when you talk to these guys down there, there's until they get reappointed by Governor Brown, there's always a chance that they could be cut and replaced, because the governor's going through the point of reappointing and appointing new people for a lot of these positions. So a lot of them are kind of not sure exactly when they're going to be told, yeah, you can stay or you got to go. So it's kind of interesting to see, especially with everyone waiting to see what the district lines, the new district lines are going to look like. You had a lot of elected officials in full political mode down there. Not exactly sure what's going to be in their district and what's not. Attended Tom Sweets, who was the executive director of CSAC Finance Corporation. And he had a retirement party down there, and Tom's a great guy. He's been very instrumental in getting CSAC Finance up and going, and he had a lot of support there. And Supervisor Finigan was there as well. It was a pretty good attendance for the great guy, and it was a fundraiser actually for his granddaughter's afflicted with
Leukemia.
With leukemia, and so they used the retirement party as a fundraiser for
Childhood cancers.
Yeah, for cancer. So. It was for a good cause. Coincidentally, there was a group of supervisors at the very end of the conference. We went out to dinner and at a Chinese restaurant in Sacramento, and we're sitting there waiting for a table, and a guy walks by in a black sweater and baggy jeans, and we're like, well, that guy looks familiar. Well, it was Governor Brown. So we got a chance to talk to him outside of the normal scope of stuff, to talk to him, and he'd actually had his honeymoon up here at Big Flat of all places, and we got a chance to meet his wife, and he was, they're obviously working on getting a couple votes to get his budget put on the agenda and voted on. So it was interesting to run him outside of the scope of what it was. One of those things you just don't expect to run into someone, but Sacramento, they're all running around there. So it was a pretty good happenstance meeting. So last week had a meeting with the game warden, Lieutenant Banco, and Warden Fraley to discuss some of the things that I mentioned earlier that I had a meeting with John McNamer and the Chief Warden Nolan. Hopefully those things will get corrected in terms of dealing with the public. And then a couple things. Attended Judge Peterson's funeral service. Was a great guy. I got to know him as a kid and growing up, and Frank was on the Superior Court judge for a long time, as well as being a previous state senator, and he had all the judges get up and speak at his funeral service, and it was really well attended, and he definitely was a great guy, and will be missed. Attended the scholarship banquet once again. I'm not sure the exact dollar amount, but it's in excess of $250,000 that gets handed out to the local schools, or to the local students that are graduating. The high school gym was packed. Always great to see the amount of money actually available for kids that do want to go on to college, and had quite a few memorial scholarships, including my dad's, that were handed out. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Supervisor Hemmingsen.
Yes, thank you. Happy Flag Day. I attended a meeting, I guess you call it the Harbor Workforce Meeting, which has to do with the RHS, or I guess it's a NORTEC grant that's going to be distributed by RHS, the $5 million for a labor force that's going to come in and help clean up the tsunami mess. And now that we have got some used docks that have been purchased and brought up here, they can maybe put those together and maybe we can put those to use. Filled in for Supervisor Finigan on the tri-agency meeting. Had action summary. Fred Grant, who is later going to come up in discussion, met with him for a while when he was in town, doing some work. He's been pretty helpful with us dealing with the Forest Service roads issues, so hopefully we can get him to help a little bit more. Had a Border Coast Regional Airport Authority meeting. Also had a meeting with the Forest Service, a coordination meeting, which they're now becoming acceptable to saying the word coordination, and actually hopefully going to continue on with actually finding out what the definition is so they know what they're supposed to be doing. But it was actually a pretty good meeting that we'd had with them. There were some issues that were left out of the scoping document that they came out with after we had our facilitated meetings that were pretty substantial items to be left out. There's dispersed campsites that are along some of the major roads that go up through the Forest Service that were not mapped. So those would be unauthorized routes to park and to be able to camp off those roads. So we thought it was pretty necessary that they address those. We had some discussion on immediate closures. They had listed immediate closures as the solution for some of the problems if motorized vehicles get off the designated routes. And we had some discussion at length about that, in that was going to be a last resort, that we would use education, signage, barricades first, and then it would come to, as a last resort, it would come to closures. So they were receptive to that, also explaining that a little further. And then we had some issues of the restoration of the roads that were not authorized at this time. And since this is supposed to be a working plan that continues on and we're supposed to review annually, it's going to be pretty hard to review roads that are decommissioned or returned back to their natural habitat. So those discussions would go away because there would no longer be a road there. So those discussions are going to continue. I went to the harbor meeting, which I can't believe that their hands and backs aren't still sore from slapping each other on the back on what a good job they're doing. And to quote Mr. Stover, that things are going at a lightning speed. So if that's believable to you, I guess we can go with that. Also attended the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority meeting, and it seems that though they're finally recognizing that they do have a budget issue that they are addressing, so that's good news. I'm glad to see that. Had a meeting with staff on the snowy plover habitat issue that's coming back around. My understanding is they want to expand the area for the snowy plover, and didn't get a sense of how much they're expanding it, but we're looking into that. Also got a chance to go out and see Florence Keller Park that has had some rehabilitation done to it. It looks really nice. They did a really good job. Jay, you're to be commended on what part you played in that. I think really looks good. Really a nice addition. It's really cleaned that up and really makes that look nice. So it's nice to go out there and see that. I also attended Frank Peterson's services. He was, known him for many, many years. Always was just a great guy, just a real down-to-earth guy, even though he had been a state senator and a Superior Court judge for a long time, and even after he retired, he continued to work as a judge and as an attorney, but really just a nice person. And then we did have kind of an informal Supervisor Finigan and I met with staff on some airport mitigation issues for a short period of time. And that's about it for me.
Thank you.
Yes, the Redwood Park Association, we're in our final round of interviewing for director, and staff is all up and running, and the bookstores are open, and the tourists are coming. So that's all good things that are happening with that. The senior board met, and we have developed a budget. We have corrective action plans, and I think things are going in the right direction there now. I had met with Peter Douglas for a couple of hours on just some of the ins and outs of the Coastal Commission. And Solid Waste met and is attacking the budget and are very happy that the new cans are on the street, the new carts, I should say. We no longer have garbage cans. We now have garbage carts in our community. RCTA met and everything seems to be going fine. There's an additional bus coming, I think. And it had a fairly solid budget that was also adopted. I stopped in and met with the harbor master for a while to see if there was anything of assistance that they needed and just get an update on what was happening. And they were at that point, I think, waiting for a analysis of the sand types in the harbor for dredging. And then I think that everyone should just think about that in our community, our national park firefighters have been there in Arizona. And so we want to have good thoughts go to them, that they're careful, and they come back to our community, and we don't have any fires here this year. That's about it.
Thank you. Supervisor Finigan.
Yeah, aside from some of the local meetings that you heard some of the other supervisors report out, most of my focus is going to be on some of the out-of-town meetings that I had. I went to a Regional Council of Rural Counties board meeting where, again, the whole theme in Sacramento these days is AB 109, which is the corrections shift, as well as realignment. And I guess you could say AB 109 is part of that realignment. Diane Cummings, who is the governor's guru on this realignment, spoke to RCRC. And some of the things she had to say is that there is a $10 billion structural deficit that is ongoing year after year. It used to be 19 to 20 billion, so I guess you could say that's an improvement, but there's still a $10 billion structural deficit that needs to be fixed. The forecast is that the economy is going to be up 30% for the year. I don't know who makes these forecasts, but that's what they're saying out of the governor's office. So what they've realized is an additional $6.6 billion in revenue so far, but how that translates is 2.8 for this year, 3.5 billion for the year 11-12, and of course Prop 98, the education, is going to take 1.8 billion of that. So it's not all general fund, and it's not all a windfall for this year. But this plays into some of the smoke and mirrors that goes on. As far as realignment goes, the promise from the governor, as articulated through Diane Cummins, is that there will be no realignment until there is a vote or a tax extension, that there will be no passing down of the state's responsibilities to the county to implement those programs until the money has been identified and guaranteed for the counties. As far as law enforcement, AB 109, even though that is a bill that was passed, and they were talking about rescinding it, that it will not be implemented until there is adequate funds guaranteed for the trust fund. So that also is a promise from the governor. And so far he's been excellent as far as keeping his promises to counties. So the governor will continue to work on the tax extensions. He will continue to, and they said they will continue to fund these programs even after July 1st. I asked, what's Plan B? And there is no Plan B. Plan B actually would be as if there was no tax extension when it goes to the voters, then you would see an all-cuts budget. And by that, you're severely cut to education as well as several programs. So it's going to be a decision that the voters are going to have to make. But what they're planning to do, and I hope it doesn't give a false sense of security, is to fund out of the general fund these programs that were supposed to be extended or funded through the extension of the BLF or the tax extensions, and then pay themselves back once the vote takes place and is a positive vote. Well, again, what happens if it's not a positive vote? And this is part of the arguments that they're having right now, is that bridge time between when the election would take place and whether those guarantees would be extended by the legislature until the vote, or whether there would be a void there and let the governor hang himself out, borrowing again from general fund monies. There's a lot of schemes out there, and I'm not going to give them all to you. Basically, what the governor has eliminated so far is 43 boards and commissions, and he says he's not done yet, which is good. Once the the budget has been passed, just not enacted. So what a lot of people don't realize is there was a budget that was adopted. It's way out of whack, and it doesn't even begin to balance itself. I think it's what you're going to see in talking to some of the legislators. You will see a budget because that threat of them not getting paid past Wednesday really resonates. That's how ridiculous it is in Sacramento. They're worried about their own pay, not about doing their constitutional obligation. What that budget is, it may not be palatable to the governor, and it may not be signed, but the legislature may do their job. You may see the Senate pass a bill or pass a budget and then leave town, much the way they've done in the past, and leave it up to the Assembly to be the fall people. As far as AB 109, the implementation and the triggers, there are panels that have been established on the statewide basis as well as countywide. They're going to talk about recommendations on how much money and where that money should go statewide, as well as where it should be locally. As far as regulatory issues we talked about, AB 885, it's something I think you're all aware of, the septic tanks. Well, they're finally getting around to releasing the tiered system plan, something that we fought for and something that we were successful in. So you're going to see a tiered system. They're going to grandfather in existing working systems, and there will be local controls over new systems. So that has survived. What you're always worried about is when the water board changes, that some of the promises that we fought and won, that they forget about those. But so far, that is good. Then we talked about illegal dumping, and actually kudos to Del Norte County. It's one of two counties. Del Norte and Butte counties are highlighted as having model programs in attacking illegal dumping through the Illegal Dumping Task Force. That's good stuff. I'm not going to report on the myriad of bills that are going through the Senate and the Assembly because, quite frankly, a lot of them are going to change, and they still have to get to the governor. So those fights are yet to going to happen. And as far as wetland and riparian area protection policy, it's a constant war, period. Okay, enough said on that. Then went to the CSAC Ledge Conference, participated there. Some of the speakers, Lois Wolk, Senator Wolk, who's been involved on the Democratic side of realignment, spoke. Secretary Kate spoke, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, like I spoke with Diane Cummings said regarding realignment, that what's going to happen if the tax extensions aren't there? Will there be no more money for public safety come July 1st? And I just told you that yes, the money will be there. But what happens if the vote doesn't take place? So it's postponing the inevitable perhaps. But with corrections, while we talk about this shift through 109 of local as opposed to state prisons, you're not going to see people being released from state prisons going to county jails. That's not the plan. That's misinformation. What you're going to see is when the sentencing takes place at the local level, that they are sent to the county jail rather than sent to the state prison. So they are anticipating the problem for the future. They are not going to just open the doors of the prisons and send them back to our communities. It's going to be people that are in our communities now that have yet to offend or are offending, and when they get sentenced, those are the people that are going to impact our local jails. Again, they're going to be the non-non-nons. It's going to be the non-violent, non-sexual, non-predatory, and non-reoffending. that are only going to be eligible. So we'll see on that. Also had lunch with the governor, was able to chat him up about Del Norte County. As Mike says, every opportunity you get, every time you run into him, very personable, very accessible, and he does know where Del Norte County is. He is aware of the rural issues. He is aware that there needs to be base minimum allocations for some of the programs. You can't just one size fits all, doesn't work. He's aware of this because MODOC didn't vote for him, so if he calls you a MODOCian, that's not a good thing. But anyway, then I think Mike pretty much reported on some of the meetings we had there. Also had a CSAC Foundation meeting, ways to do outreach to counties. Talked about Tom Sweet. Cal Trust was one of his babies that we've tried to get some of our investments locally to be put into that. Came back and had again, had to go to Sacramento and testify in front of the Senate committee, Lois Wolk's committee, actually, regarding the airport JPA in the Smith River Rancheria. The bill was amended. The amendments were agreed to by the Rancheria. There's two competing bills, not competing necessarily. 307 is one that would give every single Indian tribe, every single sovereign nation, JPA rights unabated in the state of California. While there's no opposition to it, it may not get signed by the governor. What we did with the Chesbro's bill was to amend it not just for the airport, but also for public works projects, for sewer, for water, and for roads. And we're specific in that, but the key there is while we're specific in it and limiting, those are the only things that we do in this community. So we just, rather than having this big cloud of not knowing what a person can do, we specified exactly what our community expects in a JPA, and so we expect that to be very successful. It went through unanimously, and everybody showed great support. Then, other than that, had a meeting. I think, Gerry, you talked about mitigation at the airport, and just stay tuned for the budget. We'll see what happens.
Thank you. Well, I attended with Supervisor McClure. We met with Greg Burns after our last board meeting. He had spoken at our board meeting, and we hadn't had a chance to meet with him prior to that. I attended the County Medical Services Program meeting in Sacramento, and on my way home, stopped at Lake Shasta just to say hello, and ended up staying 2 days on a houseboat there with my brother, and it rained the whole first day, and the second day the water pump broke down, and we came home grubby, so that was fun. I also attended a nephew's wedding in Shady Cove, Oregon, and a granddaughter's graduation in Bend, Oregon. So I was in Oregon quite a bit this last couple weeks. Also attended the coordination committee meeting with Supervisor Hemmingsen, and he explained a lot about that. Mary Kay, Tyrone were there, and one thing I have to add, when we all decided that we didn't have the same definition for restoration. When we hear restoration of roads, we think they're going to be repaired. It didn't mean that at all. Restoration of roads to them is taking them out and putting them back to nature. So we got that cleared up.
Obliterate is a good word.
Pardon me?
Obliterate is a good
Well,
word.
we said that maybe that should be changed. The name should be changed to not restoration of the roads. Anyway, also had a meeting with the Barnes family and Mr. Blatnick regarding the renewal on the lease of our social services building, and I think our negotiations are going well. The building was built for us to begin with, so it really suits our needs, and we hope to be able to stay there because there are not a lot of buildings available in Del Norte County that can accommodate. I also met with Sarah Samples, who is on the Solid Waste Authority, or Solid Waste Board, and with Kevin Hendrick to go over the ad hoc response to the other ad hoc committee recommendations. That will be coming back to the board in July. Also, I wanted to mention when you were talking about all the new cans being put out, I was pleased with that, but when we got ours, my husband went to put a garbage bag in the smaller can, I decided that we could go with the smaller can because we do so well in recycling. But after looking inside that can, we could not go with the smaller can. But I looked on the lid, and the lid said 32 gallons. And my recycle bin that was much larger said 32 gallons. So I took my smaller trash can out to Tommy's place out there. Freakology, thank you. And I asked the girl, I said, now look at these two cans here. They both say 32 gallons, and one definitely is not as big as the other. Well, they had hired an outside company to come in and do all the cans, put the cans together and deliver them. Well, the same lids fit both size cans. So if you get a phone call from your company and they ask you, well, what size can you have? Don't go read the lid to find out. Anyway, just thought I'd share that information. The grandson that I attended his graduation here also was a recipient of a nice scholarship. So with that, we will move on. We are right at...
Madam Chair, if I could just, I had mentioned two other things I forgot to mention. One is I did happen to have breakfast with Senator Lamalfa. He was helpful in dealing with this fish and game deal in Sacramento, and his staff was really helpful in getting things set up with the executive director. Also, you may have noticed in the paper, and I need to bring it to the community's attention, there is a spot on the College of the Redwoods Oversight Committee. If you remember the bond issue that was passed several years ago that was supposed to put a science lab out at College of the Redwoods Del Norte, I would encourage all of you, or as many of you as possible, to apply. We don't have anybody from Del Norte County on that right now. It's an open spot. So we still want to make sure College of the Redwoods fulfills their promise, because all of you are paying, that own property are paying assessments to pay for that bond issue. Let's make sure that they build that science lab out here that was originally promised when they did it. So anyway, I would encourage you to get your applications in for that.
Thank you. At this time, we will take public comment. Any member of the public may address the board on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Mr. Miles.
Well, I got some good news for David. I don't plan to spend all day here, so I'm going to do my little thing.
You do or you don't plan to spend?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I got a birthday card. You know, I'm getting old and getting a little grayer, but I think it does have to do with an item that's on today's agenda. And I'd like to read a card from my sister who happens to live in Arizona. Recently saw a video of the tsunami when it hit Crescent City. Wow. They know in Arizona what happened here. Arizona is having wildflowers. They say it's the worst fires in Arizona's history. The forests in the Apache Mountains have literally been destroyed. The Fort Apache Reservation burnt to the ground. All that history gone. All the critters are coming into town. Good thing we live in the Low Red District. They won't be coming here. It's important that we keep all the roads in our forest open, because there's a pattern, it's called El Nino. Right now we're still getting rain, but towards October and November, before the rains come again, things will dry out. I don't want to see my redwoods burned down. Unless the National Forest people, the National Parks people, and I'd hope the state parks people would wake up when they got a demonstration force where the wood's thicker than hair on a raccoon's back. that we do something. Also, I want to show you a little newspaper article. It says reductions in city funds puts the Arcata Welcoming Center in jeopardy. Well, Arcata's like Crescent Cities right now because of the amount of funding that will be given to our Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to make a suggestion to two people in the audience in this board. For years, the state has funded this welcoming center in Arcata. It happens to be 80 miles south of here. When Del Norte County is the gateway to California, it's time that if this center is closed by Arcata, that my city and my county, maybe the people at the Visitors Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce, really do some lobbying and get that center located here. The reason is the state funds a portion of the money that runs it.
Thank you, Richard. Good idea.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Good morning, Zach Larson with the Del Norte Fish and Game Advisory Commission. I'm here on behalf of Chair Janine Holt in regard to an issue about our Chinook salmon fishery. We had a triennial regulation change process at the Fish and Game Commission level happen just recently, and what happened is they decided to lump jack salmon, which are precocious salmon with adults, in the annual bag limit of 5 Chinook salmon per year. And this has been brought to our attention by local anglers. There was a little confusion throughout the process, and now we believe there was confusion at the department level and even at the commission level. So we've prepared a letter, and we were not able to make a quorum during our last meeting, so it was asked that I present this letter to you guys.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks.
Thank you, Zach.
And then secondly, I'd like to just give you a brief update on the Marine Life Protection Act. I was here during an April meeting, and the commission had, I guess the department delayed a response to the commission for, they're not formal recommendations, but they identify it as alternatives for public review, comment, and consideration by the commission. And really what it means for us is, again, marine protected areas, which I commonly refer to as MPAs. We have 3 off our coast that affect our local port. One is up on near the Oregon border called Pyramid Point, which extends from the border down to just above Cone Rock by the Smith River Rancheria. Second one is offshore of Point St. George. And then finally down at Redding Rock, we have another MPA down there that affects our fishery. What will change possibly is up at Pyramid Point, they're talking about extending the boundary down to Prince Island. It's about 1/3 of a mile change, and that is the most significant change that's going to affect us. All the other proposed marine protected areas remain the same. There's a 33-page document that they just put out. It's on the MLPA initiative website, and I was going to make copies of these for you, but it was a lot of paper. So those are the major changes. They're looking at ways to accommodate tribal uses, and it's it's really unclear where it's going. So I'm sorry to be not clear about what I think is going to happen. But I will give you an update after the next Fish and Game Commission meeting.
Zach?
You need to weigh in on the MLPA, the MPA.
You know, I'm not really sure at this point. I think that all of the geographies are going to remain the same. It's just the proposed allowed uses within those MPAs that may change, and they're all looking to accommodate tribal use. I think they're making a good faith effort to do so, and really what I think is going to happen is the uses that are available for or allowed for tribes will be allowed for everybody else that holds a fishing license, and but they will only be shore-based. So, and what they're really trying to do is meet the goals of the Marine Life Protection Act, and the way they can do that is just limiting the take of the resources. So that's what they're trying to do.
Zach, none of these areas exclude crab, is that right?
With the exception of Pyramid Point.
Well, I was reading that where they were talking about either moving it farther north or moving it farther south, but I didn't think there was any restriction on the taking of commercial taking of Dungeness crab, but I'm wrong?
It's a state marine conservation area that allows the only allowable use that the stakeholders proposed and was carried on through the Blue Ribbon Task Force proposal was that it would allow dip netting of smelt, and then also to accommodate tribal uses. All of the other uses, including crab, would not be allowed at Pyramid Point.
Okay.
But offshore Point St. George is available.
Okay, and
so is Redding Rock.
And Redding Rock.
With the exception of the reserve that's there. So.
Thank you, sir.
And what was their reasoning for wanting to move that line? I didn't quite...
And I didn't touch on that. Thank you. It's really a line in the sand, and it abuts tribal trust land for the rancheria, and so that is why the line is there. But there's no physical landmark that distinguishes that line, and so either they're recommending that the rancheria post a sign, asking the commission to make a decision whether they want the rancheria to post a sign at that location or just extend the boundary down to Prince Island. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Do we have any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to running
Madam Chair?
a little bit late.
Madam Chair, if I might, under direction to staff, under item number 1 there, while they're still here, Zach, this is not on a fish issue, but regarding to Fish and Game, and also Road Department is here. There is a proliferation of elk, male elk, herds of male elk, in excess of 15 that are roaming from Victory Lane up behind the casino, out Elk Valley Road, are becoming increasingly belligerent towards the neighbors out in Meadowbrook Acres. And we're going to have an issue, number 1, with roads. There probably needs to be some signs posted. Somebody's going to get killed when you run into one of those if they don't try to gore somebody while they're protecting their apple tree. Number 1, and number 2, the Fish and Game Commission needs to look at an elk hunt or something. There's too many elk out there right now, for whatever reason, because they've been protected or because neighborhoods are encroaching upon their habitat. It needs to be looked
Because
at.
they're coming out of our forests, where as far as
There's
I'm
no
concerned, they can't.
Right.
I think the other
Forage
thing on that
with it
is
anymore.
there hasn't been a survey done by Fish and Game as to determine how many elk we're talking about. I mean, they have no idea. They're throwing tags out there willing. I mean, there's no science behind it at this point.
Well, 2 years ago, our commission had invited department staff to come up and give us a presentation on the big game hunts. We were actually responsible for raising the tag quota from 10 to 20, or for the Northwest California hunt, which includes all the private property outside of Green Diamond land. And that was to alleviate some of the concerns in the Smith River area and, the greater Crescent City area. And so we did have that tag quota lifted. The problem is you have all these smaller parcels, 1 and 3 acre parcels out in that area, and it's unsafe to shoot a rifle. Oh. And so that area is troublesome, and I agree that there could be some some signage.
Yeah, and I don't know, the signage on the road perhaps, and maybe engaging Fish and Game as to their non-management plan for the elk herds, and see if they can come up with something more proactive. Just
Yeah,
throwing it out there, maybe we can report back in the future.
Right, they recommend fencing, and they place the burden on the landowners, and it's expensive to install fencing that can keep elk out, so. But we will, at your direction, we'll take that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 3, update report on the Del Norton Adjacent Tribal Lands Building Healthy Communities Initiative. Laura?
I'm not Laura Olson.
No, you aren't.
No. But she's right over there.
Yes.
The California Endowment, and Geneva Wiki from Wild Rivers Community Foundation is with her. And I think it's really a great opportunity for all of us, especially the board and whoever is listening in, to hear all the great work that's going on around the Building Healthy Communities Initiative. And it gives you an opportunity to ask any questions you might have. And I should mention, in a couple weeks at your next board meeting, we're going to have the California Center for Rural Policy here again, and they're going to speak about health indicators, health outcomes, and the kinds of challenges that we are facing in Del Norte County and the adjacent tribal lands. So take away, Laura.
Thank you, Gary. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, board members. Good morning, everyone. So I was here a while back. I think we were right in the end, toward the end of our planning period when we last sort of talked, and we felt like it was important that that I come back and kind of give you an update on where things are, because folks are seeing that some investments are starting to hit the ground on in the community, and I just wanted to kind of give you an idea about what some of those investments are. How decisions are being made on those, which is also very complex, and try to make sure that we have a way to kind of keep you all in the loop, so that we have a system to make sure that you're all on lists that are receiving information, that we have sort of a feedback loop, so that you're all informed on an ongoing basis about the work that's going on, because there's a lot of it. So I guess what I would start with is the investments for in the first year have been about $1 million. There will probably be about $1 million a year in my estimation of over 10 years. So just to get the amount thing out of the way, a lot of those investments are being made through small grants that are going out in ways that are bringing community members together to think about how to make changes in the community. So the way that instead of being like a traditional foundation that has a grant process where you have a deadline and you make, you kind of get applications and you make grants, we're really looking to create opportunities to bring community members together to think about how change happens in their community, get out in front of thinking about what it takes to get residents involved in making changes, and then support that systematically with grants that help make sure that there's money to support people who want to make change, so that as we're making change in the community around health-related issues, what we're really doing is helping bring new leadership to the table and bring new voices to the table to kind of take on the challenges in the community. So when the endowment's not here with the funding that will be here over time, there'll be people who have actually come together in new ways to help create that change. So it's really the grants that have gone out have really gone to organizations who are spearheading some of that work. And some of those, to give you some specific ideas, are CAN is working on bringing food systems together, so kind of bringing community members with people who are doing farming in the community with sort of, food banks and other looking at food insecurity. We're making sure that as we do this work, we're creating systems that we know will be able to know when we're moving the needle, because ultimately, when the endowment is here, what we want to do is create we want to create enough of a baseline of information so that we know when change is happening. So one of the criteria is sort of how do we raise this to scale? How do we create change in ways that we know that there will be an outcome that we can actually measure and point to at the end of this. So, for example, we're talking about things like, if you're looking at food security and you're talking about, kind of window boxes and growing food, or changing school meals, how, where's the impact going to be? So really talking and trying to push sort of change in thinking to communities to come together and say, well, what would it take to, to look at policies, bring people together to think about what would need to change in school meals to make them healthier, and that will have a tremendous impact over time on the health of kids. And that's what's happening right now. So you might have seen articles in the Triplicate about salad bars in every school now, and a lot of that is because community members came together to decide to make changes. The endowment made a small grant to help with some infrastructure changes at the schools that didn't have salad bars, in order to make sure that we could implement that. The next step is now there's a whole bunch of empowered people who have made something happen in that community, and now they're thinking about, well, so what would have to change to actually improve the quality of school meals, and what would have to happen to get people signed up for free and reduced meals, and leverage more federal dollars into our community to make sure that there are kids that are getting fed, and they're getting breakfast, and they're getting healthy meals. So a lot of that is sort of the endowment not leading the charge, but it's actually getting community to lead the charge, and then us kind of working with community. And I think that's happening in a number of ways. Some other ones are, we have a really exciting youth project happening this summer, where, and in collaboration with the HHS and a lot of programs that at Health and Human Services, we're working with Rural Human Services on this as well, is to bring some youth together to create a map of this region, where they actually our youth themselves are walking through their own neighborhoods and talking about the things that they're seeing. Are there liquor stores? Are there safe sidewalks and walks to school? What are the things that they see from their perspective that would need to improve to be a healthier community? And what can they do then to make those changes? So and then bringing training in to help them learn about leadership and advocacy and kind of communication, helping them with mapping and media and all of these kinds of trainings things. So at the end of that, we have both a map that can be used as a baseline of information for the 10-year project, but also youth who now are empowered and kind of fired up and kind of can take that around and do some presentations in neighborhoods to talk about what would it take to change something here, and it can be, start with small things, but over time, those are the next, leaders in this community, those are the next folks sitting in these chairs and out here that are actually taking on things in the community. So it's some of this is slow change. There's sort of really great things. There's a community garden going in over at the health care district that you might, probably heard about. So there's like some real immediate, like, let's get together and make that stuff happen. There's the clinic is buying a dental health van. They're going to be able to go out to places like the school in Gasky, to the school in Klamath, park it there, enroll kids in insurance, make sure kids have a health home, make sure their permission slips are signed. So there's some real immediate, so there's this very big spectrum, this is why it's hard to describe, of things from sort of building leadership capacity in the community to like meeting some immediate health needs. So that over the 10-year initiative, the idea is that, there's momentum building and things changing that improve conditions over time. So that's kind of, and without sitting here and going through each grant, what I'm trying to describe is not about necessarily each specific grant or dollar amount that goes out, although we have lists that we can share. But it's also about the way that we're trying to engage community over time, and then backing that up with the financial support that's necessary while we're here over the 10 years in many kinds of different ways. And throughout all the corners of the community as well, so not just in Crescent City, but how do we get walking groups in Gasky or folks in Klamath, talking about what a healthy neighborhood looks like, and upriver and projects upriver as that's included in our territory, as you know. And then, as Gerry mentioned, California Center for Rural Policy also, we gave them a grant to help us make sure that we have the information we need on the ground. You guys are well aware, and Gary's always Mr. Data Guy trying to come in here and present data to you guys, I know. But a lot of the data we get isn't, it's small sample sizes, it's not real good, and it's also not, if we're going to make a change, we want data that actually is directed toward knowing that we're going to get information that we need to know where we're getting there. So we need to pull some of that data, and part of CCRP's goal in the community is help build the capacity of our nonprofits and other community groups to help them know if we're going to go down this path of making a change, how are we going to know when we get there? Do we have the tools and the information that we need to make sure that we're making progress? So, CCRP will help us with that, and I think that, some of that is they've collected a lot of data with Del Norte that they'll be sharing about Del Norte. They'll be sharing at your next meeting to talk more about some of the specific health indicators that they're finding that we're using as baseline for our work as well. I think that's the main part. I think that's the main. I can talk more about specifics, or if you have questions about grants or how things are happening. It's a complex, evolving process. You know, everyone can have a direct connection with me. I try to make the grants happen to the best of my ability to support the work. And we have the Wild Rivers Foundation and this hub committee, this group of about 30 or so residents and leaders that we're working with to help us kind of get it on the ground. We have a group of Vistas. We have a bunch of Vista volunteers, some of you may have run into. They're trying to get us capacity to get things going. It's lots of moving parts in this, but, and we're just at the beginning, but we're already seeing some great progress.
Thank you, Laura.
Right. Yeah, I was,
Questions from?
well, that was, she just answered my question, and I think that's great that this planning process and evolving process is going to continue so that changes can be made. So I think that's pretty important part of the whole plan. So I think that's great.
Yeah, fortunately, community members, community at large likes to see something substantive like a garden here or a dental van there. But I like what you stressed, though. It really is the networking of partnerships and that fabric of the foundation of the community, so there's feedback and there's involvement, and you're able to change the entire landscape. That's what's important, and I think you're doing a great job so far. So keep it up.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. That's our hope. It's a different way of working, and we're still kind of figuring it out, but with lots of help with the residents. You know, it's not about us out in front of it. It's about us supporting change in the community. So.
Well, I know that my students are very happy
Good.
with the
Yay.
change in the food program.
Yay. There's been so much great work on that. I mean, people have just come to the table in just unprecedented, like just, you know, no barriers. It's about the kids.
There's a long way to go, but they're very
There's
happy.
a long way to go, but we're learning. You know, we're all learning. And it's not because someone did a needs assessment and then brought in a service. It's about community really figuring it out and working with systems to create positive changes in ways that are productive. So I'm just really excited about that. That's the best example of how things can really go. Yeah, thanks. Heather?
Thank you.
Good. All right, thank you.
Richard?
One of the reasons why I decided to attend today, too, I believe the California Initiative is doing a lot of great work in this community, but I have a fear recently, because I read outside newspapers, our federal Congress is looking at the new Farm Bill. Within the new Farm Bill, there'll be serious cuts to a number of food programs that we all depend on. So I believe there'll be a greater need to do some partnerships over the next 10 years in this community because a lot of our residents rely on WIC and some other programs like our own food stamp program that, you know, and some of the resources that RHS uses through the Department of Agriculture. One thing that I'd like to see this group do, because I don't think they're doing enough of it, and this is some criticism of my social services people, that I'm aware there are a lot of people in Delaware County that are eligible for food stamps, that there hasn't been a large advertising program to sign people up. I'm not eligible, but I know there are people that are. Also, I think we need to look at the needs of our seniors. I'm somebody that receives Social Security and my food budget, because when a bushel of wheat is now going for $15 a bushel, and I go look at the price of Kellogg cereal, there's been increases. One of the reasons is because we're relying too much on using our corn products for ethanol. Well, That's another issue. But what my fear is that the people locally who's in charge of this initiative isn't looking at the full spectrum of the citizens. It's been ideally to work with the youth, but the youth doesn't make up the whole population base of Del Norte County. It's only one element. So you have people at the tribe who suffer from diabetes, something that me and Martha have in common. But until we have an overall education program about health in this community, we still have needs. And I believe a lot of these needs are being overlooked. And when each year you have $1 million to spend, each year we should set fixed goals and achieve them, because it's okay to have community gardens like behind my house in Peterson Park, and at the Wellness Center, are nice.
Thank you, Richard.
Veggie stands at our schools, but there's bigger issues.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we will move on to item number 4. Waive full reading, read by title only, and adopt an ordinance of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors establishing a master fee ordinance for the County of Del Norte as requested by the County Administrative Officer.
At our previous meeting, the ordinance was presented to the Board of Supervisors. There were a number of questions, and I think there were answers given at that time. Today, this is the formal public hearing that's required that will then set in motion the timeline to make this ordinance effective. Most of these fees are related to services that haven't been changed for a number of years. Some of them include park costs, very minimal costs, and they must reflect the actual cost of doing business. So those are evaluated by each individual department. So it's presented before the board today for action.
Okay, so at this time, I will open the public hearing. Do you have anybody that would like to speak to this? Seeing none, hearing none, I will close the public hearing.
Oh, I think that reflects the work done by the different departments, and that the fact that these fees are not exorbitant and reflect the actual cost. I appreciate them putting the work in, and especially the clerk of the board who put this together virtually on her own.
And I would move that we adopt the ordinance of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors establishing a master fee ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you pull the vote, please?
And I just wanted to clarify that this is an ordinance amending County Code Section 3.50 entitled the Master Fee Ordinance. Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingsen?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes.
Supervisor Finigan?
Yes.
Supervisor McNamer?
Yes. Okay. We will move on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and oh, I'm sorry. Did you need to speak?
I'd like to speak about number 7.
Okay.
Are you requesting it to be pulled, or you want to talk to it?
No, I'd like to speak about not that it be pulled.
Okay, so you can just speak to the issue after we have approved or not approved? Okay. Pardon me?
Yeah.
You wanna-
I'd like to hear what he has to say before.
Okay, before you do it. Well, I thought we'd get it out of the way.
The item number 7 is the Smith River Festival, and this process is different than it was last year. Last year, this same letter came to the Community Development Department for a encroachment permit. Ultimately, that letter was superseded by sponsorship of CASA, and I understand that CASA has been the sponsor for this celebration for the last 6 years. The reason that the sponsorship changed was because of the liability insurance, and CASA provided the liability insurance certificate as well as the notification and coordination with the road department and the emergency services, the sheriff and the ambulance. And I wanted to speak about this, not against it by any means, but to be sure that we have this encroachment permit as part of that, as a condition perhaps, so that we can verify that there is the required liability insurance as well as notification for the potential closure of this street.
Okay.
I think the event's a great event. I mean, the Smith River Heritage Association stepped up and is running it now, and I think they do a great job with it, so.
And who is doing it now?
Smith River Heritage Association.
Are they going to be able to have get the encroachment permit and guarantee the liability insurance?
I believe so, yeah.
I mean, that's your concern, isn't it?
Yes, that is. The only other thing that I'd bring to your attention is that they are also requesting a waiver of fees. I know that that's in the hands of the board. I believe there's a policy of that. The fees were not waived last year, but that would be in your hands if you wanted to do that this time.
I think we've got a policy of not waiving fees, don't we, for permits?
What is the encroachment fee, the permit fee? 110? And how fast can they get it? Can they get it in a timely manner?
Yes, I believe that we can be at the next board meeting if we need to with an encroachment permit.
That was going to be my...
Just for future reference, it would be nice to have all this stuff worked out before it gets on the consent agenda for the meeting. It seems like these are things popping up that should have been worked out beforehand.
Yeah, I think that maybe item number 7 should be pulled and we should address it separately.
Well, I think if item number 7 just says that we would give them a permission to close the street for the encroachment permit, everything else is just worked out across the counter, and there's no reason to bring it back to the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not complicated.
All right. If that's the case, as long as those requirements are there.
Okay. Then in that case, I have a motion and a second. Would you call the vote, please?
Supervisor Finigan?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingsen?
I need to recuse myself on number 8, but yes on everything else.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes.
Supervisor McNamer?
Yes. Regular items, discussion regarding the Visitors Bureau's statistical analysis for Del Norte County.
Well, I'd like to thank the board for giving the Visitors Bureau the support that it's needed in order to be effective in promoting tourism for this area. You already have my statistical analysis before you, so I won't insult your intelligence by reading from it, but I would like to give you a summary. While other sources of revenue for this county are decreasing each year due to state setbacks and basic, I call it theft of our property tax revenue by the state, the TOT has continued to bring an increase in revenue. In 2009-10 fiscal year alone, the county was able to realize over $300,000 from the visitors who stay overnight. This is an increase of almost $18,000 from the year before, and over the last 5 years, it's meant that the county has received over $1 million in TOT. This does not count what is spent in our restaurants, attractions such as Ocean World, guided fishing trips, and general sightseeing. Our tourist industry is our largest employer with over 8,000 local people earning their living from service, leisure, hospitality businesses, and this is according to the Dean Runyon Survey of California Impacts for Del Norte County. But this doesn't happen by accident. The Visitors Bureau has developed a marketing strategy that is designed to bring visitors to the coast and specifically to Del Norte County. So let me lay out some of the goals for the Visitors Bureau. Our first goal is to expand our online marketing program by making sure that our site, exploredelnorte.com, is promoted in all of our print and radio advertising so that visitors can see what is available locally right from their home before they even come here. Not only is internet promotion the wave of the future, but it is also the wave of the present, with over 20% of our tourist trade coming from online marketing efforts. Our second goal is to increase our primary market penetration by promoting the vacation value of visiting the Redwoods in Del Norte County. And we've even developed a promotion where when the temperature hits at least 95 degrees inland, we're promoting come to the cool coast of Del Norte County for short weekend stays. Our third goal is to create and sustain partnerships. Currently, we have a partnership with the North Coast Tourism Council, which is a partnership with Humboldt and Del Norte counties. The partnership provides matching marketing funds through the California Trade and Tourism Council, which gives us a double bang for our marketing dollar. Our second partnership, which we would like to pursue this coming year, is with the Humboldt Film Commission, which will enable us to promote our area to film and TV producers. Already there is interest from film crews that are exploring our opportunities in this area, and this will provide a worldwide exposure to our area while creating more employment and keeping our motels and hotels and restaurants full, thus increasing TOT. In addition, we need to develop and sustain partnerships closer to home. We're presently working with the Tri-Agency. The Visitors Council Visitor Bureau can take advantage of both agencies' strength in increasing the number of visitors to our county and building sustainable local businesses. Another area of cooperation which we would like to pursue is a partnership to work with the County Recreation Department to develop recreational opportunities in the shoulder months when we have fewer visitors to this county. And the goal number 4 is to develop non-traditional funding sources. Our greatest advantage as a Visitors Bureau is developing the marketing ability to a wide area. It would be to our advantage to create business partnerships to help them piggyback on our marketing efforts, which would help us stretch our marketing dollars even further. And lastly, I'd like to quote from an editorial comment from the Daily Triplicate. Quote, "Almost anyone can grasp that if you successfully promote tourism, you get more motel guests and resulting boost in both the local economy and the motel tax revenue." Thank you for your time, and I'm open to any kind of questions.
Yeah, Bob, thanks for not going through the whole thing and having to make us repeat ourselves. I did have a couple of little questions on the graph that you said, how did you find out about our area? And maps for 2010 seem to be way on the increase. What exactly does that mean?
Let me see, where are you talking about? You're talking about the
How did they find out about our area? The graph?
Sure.
43.4% of the people found out about our area from a map. How did they get the map in their hands?
Yeah, you know.
And or how was the question asked?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand a map. That's how you guide yourself to get somewhere.
Right.
Although now it's a GPS unit, but I don't see that in here anywhere.
Yeah, there were questions on the original form that they fill out, the guest book that they fill out at the Chamber of Commerce. How did you hear about us? And there were no boxes they could check. It was just subjective.
Okay.
So when they put down maps, we don't know what in the heck they're talking about. But we have to put it down there because that's exactly what they said. So, we've changed that form now to create some boxes that'll be able to give us a better view of what's going on.
Because it looks to me like that you should be putting some effort into maps.
Well, we do have a lot of effort into maps, all right? We have produced thousands of them, but we don't know what maps they're referring to.
Why?
California map, our map, this map, we don't know at this particular point.
So that was just one of the things I wanted cleared up a little bit. The other thing was you have on the key facts, 8,100 local people earn their living from service, leisure, and hospitality business.
Yes.
What is the total number? What percentage does that make up of all of the people in this county that are working?
You know, I don't have that statistic readily available.
Just under 8,100 people just seem to be a lot.
It is a lot, and that's why I quoted the Dean Runyon survey, which is a tourism survey that's done every year, and they do it for each particular county. So in our county, those are the figures that they came up with, not me.
Yeah.
This would be 34 or 35%, basically.
I don't know what the total, I don't know what
Right.
the total number is, so
We can find that out.
I appreciate
You
that.
don't take the population, take the working class,
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
working.
the working people.
Well, that's why I thought it was such a high number.
right. In
because-
fact, probably the person that has that number for you might be Bill Renfro. Bill, do you have that number? I thought he might, but okay, he's not prepared either.
Well, I would
for that.
appreciate it if you get that number, you could
We can do that.
email it to me or something. I'd just like to know.
Sure.
It's just a curiosity thing. I'm a supporter. I think it's, I think
Great.
you guys are doing a great job. But those were just a couple of things that stuck out. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Bob stopped by the office, so we already had a chance to talk about some of the issues that, and I'm not going to pick apart the thing, ask you what the net is. We talk about 10 years, what the county has gotten. Well, how much was that due to bed increase and how much, so I'm not going to get into the minutia of that, other than to say that part of what we talked about was partnerships. You referenced tri-agency. You also referenced the film consortium down in Humboldt that I was first introduced to through the tri-agency. You talked about the chamber. There seems to be an overlap, and in a time when the state is making us be more frugal, and in a time when I've been touting partnerships since I got this job, I think that we really need to look at the partnership of economic development and self-promotion in this community. And I'm talking about tri-agency, chamber, and visitors bureau. And I think you're heading in that direction, and that's good.
Yes.
We can all appreciate the internet, but again, and I know it's probably going to ruffle some hair in the back of people's necks, but one of the experts regarding tourism in this community and the trends is John Thompson, who has always done a great job of investing in his advertising, and I would hope that you would check with some of those experts too, to see what's going on. I like some of the print ads that you're doing now, which I guess is probably a map too, when you find out whatever that map is. So I don't want to have that discussion about that the county's carrying the load. We're getting 1/3 of the TOT, and we're paying 2/3 of the funding.
But I think that.
But I think that's a valid thing that we need to talk about at budget time. I think under the guise of partnerships, let's be equal partners, and by that I mean fair share with our other partners, whether it's the harbor or the city or the private businesses as to the Chamber of Commerce. So obviously, I've always been on board, and for a long-term commitment.
Thank you.
The Visitors Bureau, we need to sell ourselves.
As another partnership that you may want to expand to think about is the private nonprofit of the Redwood Park Association.
We have, right, in fact, we have the Redwood Parks person on our committee. So Candace is working with us very closely.
Right. Well, she's National Park.
Correct.
But you have a private nonprofit that is just a little under $1 million
Yes.
annually.
All right.
So
We can work with that.
that's right.
No, I think it's great. I think one of the points, and I think Dave hit on it, was we need to have a permanent funding structure, a multi-year funding structure, because, it's kind of in limbo right now as to what direction things go, and it's, without any making long-range plans, we've got to have multi-year funding, and I know the county's done that before. I think it's time for the city to say, instead of every 6 months we reallocate money, let's do 3-year project with, potential extension of 2 to 3 years. Then, then it can really be leveraged, and, you can make some long-range plans with that, but it's so difficult to plan stuff every 6 months, especially when the advertising, having talked with John before and other experts on, you got to do that stuff a year in advance.
Yes.
So if you don't know what your budget looks like a year in
True.
advance, how do you actually plan and put your marketing plan into effect if you don't know what exactly you're going to have to spend?
The problem, of course, is dealing with political entities. People change, boards change, their priorities change. So even if you want to plan 3 to 4 years in advance, and you have a commitment for the board from that 1 year or the city council, you don't know what's going to happen after an election. So that's a problem too.
But it is one of the areas in the past we've never marketed the community. You've had individual business owners be very successful, whether it's Ocean World or Trees and Mystery, that have been successful. But as a community in the past, we've never marketed ourselves. So it is one area that has a lot of potential for growth.
Correct.
And it is an important part of the economy. So,
And I got to step in because this board has been consistent. I don't care who got elected, and part of it's because we have goals, and we adhere to those goals.
Right.
And we sent that message through to our administration as well as our partners. So I'm going to challenge you on that. Maybe there's some other political entities that are like that,
Right.
not this board.
But you're just one half of the equation, unfortunately.
That's funding more than half.
That's right.
thanks, Bob.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Buckles.
Thank you, Leslie.
Do I have any public comment on the presentation? Hearing none.
Oh, Michelle, you have something to say.
We'll move on to item number 13. Hold the discussion and approve and authorize the chair to sign an agreement with Fred Kelly Grant LLP for professional services. And who is doing any credit?
Well, this was put on through County Counsel's office by Gretchen, who unfortunately is not here today. But this was put forward in regards to the coordination process that we've undertaken, and the idea behind the services would be to provide staff with some support in dealing with the process and getting to the next level of coordination. As I think Supervisor Hemmingsen brought up earlier, we've met with the Forest Service. They've said the word, but we have to be able to prepare plans and be proactive so that we can then work with them early before it gets into that process. And in talking with Gretchen at the time, her office as well as administration will need some help getting to that level. Just some of it will be a staffing issue.
I can add to that I've had discussions with Gretchen about this as well, and I think we both concur that on a systemic level anywhere, there's a lack of understanding as to what coordination is. And County Council has determined that the expertise, both regulatory and legal, that Mr. Grant can provide would really help us to achieve the objective of giving the county a voice at the table on these issues as far as the decisions that are made by these regulatory bodies that affect the use of land in our county. And so that's with a view towards achieving that objective. That's where this. That's why this is being put forward. So.
Great.
Thank you. I just had a question when you just said, needing help with the legal aspects, but the newspaper had mentioned that he was not licensed in the state of California.
He's not licensed in California, but he does have a huge amount of knowledge, from what I understand, about the actual regulatory processes involved.
Okay.
And, so it's not necessarily legal advice in the sense that, with respect to California law, but the overall process and structure of what goes on. So.
Okay. Thank you.
And I would move that we approve and authorize the chair to sign an agreement with Fred Kelly Grant.
Second.
I would like to make some comments, and that is that I know that this $5,000 is supposedly coming out of this year's budget. It's coming out of a general fund allocation of a budget of which we have no money. And when I read the contract at $250 an hour, that will come to about 20 hours of work. And then when you read further into the contract, you realize that it also covers this $5,000 is for travel and other out-of-pocket expenses. And it then reads on that the consultant will evaluate the progress and determine the additional fees are needed, and of course not to exceed the $250 an hour. And when I'm looking at the possibility of asking employees to take furloughs or to pay their own private retirement benefits in order to be able to continue to have a job, at $250 an hour, I would be hard-pressed to find anyone in this county family that receives that kind of wage. And so I would be in opposition to this $5,000, one, because we don't have general fund money to be spending on a $250 an hour employee or consultant with an open-ended contract that allows them to continue. There's no limit on time. There's no limit on the upper end of this. It just has the $5,000 base. And when I'm looking at employees that are eligible for food stamps, I can't go there.
Thank you, Martha.
I think this speaks to an investment, just like we invest in the Visitor Bureau or anything else. I mean, this...
I'm even questioning that because I know that my employees come first.
Am I done?
Sorry.
I tried not to interrupt while you were speaking. But, I think this has to do with an investment for the future. These are things that are happening now. These are things that are going to affect us well into the future. These are not things that we can put off to a brighter day. These are things that are happening to us right now that we need to be engaged with right now. I believe this man can help us out. If we don't hire him and we expect our county council and deputy county council to fill in, I think it's going to be much more expensive for us. It's going to take them much more time to do. They would basically have to reinvent the wheel where the wheel's already there. It's in place. I think this is. I just think this is the way we should go.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, I think there's some things coming down the pike here in the next 60 to 90 days especially that make this rather timely. I know that our county council's office in the past, over the past few years, has had cooperation and communication with Mr. Grant on some of the issues. I know that I have hosted panels in Washington and in Sacramento with Mr. Grant, members of the Bureau of Land Management, and members of the Forest Service debating whether it's cooperation or coordination we should be doing. And while the inroads have been made at the national level, they didn't translate down to the local forest. I can tell you that why I say that within the next 60 to 90 days is there's been MOUs and negotiations that have been going on between the Forest Service, between the Regional Council of Rural Counties, and between the California State Association of Counties. This is going to be extremely significant in the way that we deal with each other as partners in the coordination process. Our county council's office does not, nor does anybody in community development, have the expertise that Mr. Grant does. We're not talking about lawsuits. We're talking about somebody in the short term that can help us to formulate a plan to better enhance the communication so we can use the resources that we are touting through the Visitor Bureau to open the roads, to talk about fire management, to talk about biomass, to talk about diversity of uses in the forest, to talk about environmental habitat and protection, and all these things that, unfortunately, as electeds, we don't have all that expertise. And it's another tool in the shed, so to speak, that I do not see why we would not want to take advantage of.
Again,
and it doesn't have anything to do with pitting employees, who we all fight for here, against contracts, no more than it would be about a road contract for clearing a slide, or it would have been about hiring somebody to fight for MLPAs on our behalf, or any other issue that we deal with, period.
For instance, on the MLPA, we took the initiative to go out and find the money to pay for that position. My position is that, yes, we need all the tools in the tool shed we can get, but when there's no money to spend, you don't buy any new tools. You have to figure it out. And we're at that place. I mean, this is the problem that's just going through the government as it is now, is just spend more money. And I'm saying that here is general fund money, which is our most precious dime. We are spending it on an open-ended contract that doesn't have an ending date, it doesn't have a top amount, it has an opening bid of $5,000 and then goes to $250 and then has travel cost and out-of-pocket expenses and has a reported for expenses once a month.
Just to clarify, and this is Supervisor McClure, on the second page, it has a total not to exceed of $5,000. It's the last
But when
sentence.
you read it, where he says that he'll have to come back.
Can I
That's
defer
a
to county
discussion
council on
before.
this, since this is going to be an employee paid through the county council's budget, and since all contracts with the Board of Supervisors go through county council as to content and form, did it pass muster, council?
I didn't review the contract, but county council reviewed it, and it was satisfactory to her.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board. And as I haven't addressed this yet, I was under the impression that there is a $5,000 cap.
It does say that, but then when you read it, it says that the consultant will evaluate the progress and determine if additional fees are needed, never to exceed $250 an hour.
But then it also goes down to either party shall have the right to cancel this contract with or without cause by giving the other party 30 days
I just see
written
an
notice.
opening happening of general fund money that we can't afford.
So this can go on beyond the $5,000 without having to come back to the board?
That's
Ian?
not my interpretation of the contract. It's a retainer. It's capped off at $5,000.
Okay.
And
What if the work's not done?
I'll trust your
if the
interpretation.
work's not done, then I assume that, the board can decide what it wants to do, whether it wants to terminate the contract but really it's just a means for, it's a basic legal retainer. And even for the person to give advisory materials on there. And if it goes up to that point, it's just expending up to $5,000, and then
At
it would be an
$250 an hour
option.
is
But
20 hours worth of work.
yes,
With all the other costs coming out on top of it. Okay. Well, when I had first heard about this before anything came before us, I had heard about it, and I had heard that the $5,000 was just a retainer and that it was going to be much higher. I was not in favor of this at all. If you're guaranteeing me that there is a cap at $5,000, that's not a lot of money to expend for an important issue and something that's very important to this county and the people that want to use the back roads. And
One of the reasons that sentence is in there is that I demanded that there be a cap, a not to exceed. We don't do professional service contracts that are open-ended, and the original one was, so that's what I asked for.
I understand the cap, but my position, I guess, is that 20 hours worth of work, I mean, I know what it takes to get a job done, and 20 hours worth of work is a blink of time, especially when you add travel expenses in there. So my position is well noted, and I'll be glad to call it.
well, I'd like to know too. Then
Well,
out of those 20 hours,
That-
his time traveling
If
is
he
going to
had-
be taken off of that?
We have no intentions of making him travel. I mean, he's got video conference capabilities, we got teleconference capabilities, and to think that the 20 hours is going to be from him starting from page one. He's got thousands and thousands of hours in on this process already. All we are going to do is to take his expertise at the level that we need to have it and utilize that.
And
Like David said, it's a superior tool in the tool shed that I don't think, as I said before, with both councils working on it, I don't think they could come up to his level of expertise in a massive amount of more money.
I watched an hour-long video of the, was it the Idaho project? What was the county that he worked with?
Hawaii
County.
Initiative?
I watched an hour-long video of that initiative. And one of the things that really struck me was that it took hundreds of hours of meetings and time for the agreements to happen between all of the parties. And that was part of my alert, is that I went, whoa, wait a minute. Because it's not just it's a changing of a paradigm, and I'm not opposed to changing of the paradigm, but my issue is that we don't have any money. Now, if you want to try to find money, and go to a foundation and get the money, that's what we should be doing. And that's what I would, when the MLPA thing came forward, it was like, okay, I'm going to find the money so we can do this right. And that's what we have to do, because general fund dollars are very, very precious dollars to keeping this county open for business.
I think we've reached a crossroads. We, with coordination, need to take
We need
this
to
step.
find the money.
We need to take this step to see if coordination will work for this county, because we have been bulldozed over by these agencies and have not been able to take a stand. They have not cooperated with us. If this gentleman could figure out a way for us to actually require these agencies to coordinate with our county and our community, then, you know, this is a small investment to the future return you can get off of this. I'm not sure why we're sitting here and arguing about a $5,000 investment in this thing, especially when it's capped, and we're either going to know if it works or it doesn't work. But I think it's a small amount of money to actually see if we can actually get the agencies to think of the people in this community when they come up with their regulations, and actually, you know, help the people in this community instead of hurt us. Especially with 80% of our land publicly owned, we have to deal with these agencies.
Well, and I don't think it's a crapshoot. I think that he's proven himself in other areas and recognized as an expert, and I think that's why we're leaning on it. And Martha, I hear completely what you're saying about the money, but I also heard what you said about that there is a definite and true need to change the paradigm of the way we communicate, and I appreciate that and want to highlight that.
Why aren't we going, and I don't even know, but why aren't we going to the Rocky Mountain Foundation? Or why aren't we going to the...
Maybe we will.
What's the one that does the hunting one? The foundation. I mean, why aren't we reaching out to foundations and saying, look, we have a project, we need $60,000 for this, or we need whatever it is we need for this. But general fund dollars are supposed to be for keeping the county open, for keeping our government working properly. And that's exactly the problem with government.
Amen.
Is that we keep just peeling it off, saying, well, it's only 5,000 here, it's only 5,000 there, and the next thing you know, you're still not taking any fiduciary responsibility, and it has to start.
Can I call a question?
Call a question. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second.
Poll the vote, please.
Call the vote.
Supervisor Finigan?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
No.
Supervisor Hemmingsen?
Yes.
Supervisor McNamer?
Yes. We'll move on to item number 14, consider and approve the proposed special aviation BCRAA and county airport budgets for 2011-2012 as requested by the airport director.
Good morning, Supervisors.
Mr. Bernard.
I have before you a budget for both the Border Coast Regional Airport Authority, the county aviation budget, which we still have some grants on the county budget, and the special aviation budgets. These budgets have been approved by the Airport Authority Board of Commissioners, and as per our JPA agreement, you too get to approve these budgets because you contribute money to the airport. Now, in addition to your contribution this year, I wanted to point out that the Oregon Department of Transportation is granted us match money for our AIP grants of last year, which comes to about $40,000 this last year. And we got that through Brookings and Curry County's membership in the authority. We applied for it through them. Also, just recently, the City of Crescent City has agreed to apply for a grant for our application for CDBG money for the terminal replacement project. That grant is also $40,000. Hasn't been approved yet, but they too will be contributing. However, I'm not sure those grants will give them approval of the budget, but nonetheless, we are receiving some input from our other members.
Is it a technical assistance grant?
Yes,
okay.
PTA grant. The budget that we have before you today, as I've stated in the memo here, does not include any AIP grants for next year. I've added a worksheet of where we think we're going with that, which is considerable, about $5 million in grants if we were to get all the work done that we would like to do this year. I'm not sure if there'd be anybody left standing in my office if we did that, but nonetheless, some of those issues are compliance grants. Some of them are development grants, which we would like to do and have been wanting to do, as you well know, for years. At this time, we don't have any applications in. I will be putting in some applications in the next month. So this budget does not reflect those grants or the match required for those. The operating expenses are balanced out here, or come up with a projected expenses exceeding revenues by $75,000, as I mentioned here, and that is primarily to do pre-grant work on the terminal replacement project. So we've allocated that money, some of it's carryover from last year, to continue to do design work before we get the AIP grant. That money would be refundable once the AIP grant was in place. So we intend to make up that deficit. We have the money there to spend to keep the project moving, but we do intend to recoup it once the grant is in place. The county airport budget portion of this is very small, as we have $217,000 left in old grants that were written to the county. We continue to move those towards closeout, at which point it'll be all airport authority budget.
So you can encumber on AIP prior to its being awarded?
Pre-design formulation with approval, with FAA approval to do pre-design work, yes.
I'd move to approve the proposed special aviation, the Border Coast Regional Airport Authority, and the county airport budgets for 2011-2012 as requested by the airport director.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Hearing none. Any?
Make one comment on this one.
Yes.
I just wanted to comment on the contribution from the county. It's $271,000, a little more than $271,000 that's contributed by the county, just to put that out there. People understand where a considerable amount of this funding comes from.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Jay. And then, Jim, equally, I'm glad to point out that while we're a fledgling government, JPA, we make strides every month, if you will. The fact that we've expanded and probably will expand some more, the fact that we are getting funds from our partners out of state makes it a really, truly regional airport. And I know that other partners will be stepping up to the plate as we go forward with match money. So it's working. Good job.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Jeremy, would you pull the vote, please?
Supervisor Hemmingsen?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes.
Supervisor Finigan?
Yes.
Supervisor McNamer?
Yes.
Madam Chair, with the board's approval, if I could take just a quick minute here, I'd like to add a little informational
No.
time.
Sure you can.
Okay.
I just want to see the look on your face.
Okay.
It's okay.
What we have here is the
Thank you.
design for the terminal layout. I've hesitated to bring this to you until it was finalized, but there was a change. The FONSI, or the finding of no significant impact, has been drafted, and it is sitting on the regional director, FAA regional director's table or desk to be signed. It should be signed shortly, at which point we will have completed the environmental process of the terminal replacement project, and we can then move forward with the grant application that I'm writing right now for final design. This is the new layout that we worked out through our coastal appeal, and we have a letter of intent to issue a coastal development permit from the Coastal Commission based on this design. It's changed somewhat. As you can see, we've backed out of the trees entirely and focused the design on areas that are already disturbed, but we feel we can nonetheless create a viable terminal.
We still have the frog tunnels.
We will have some frog tunnels to accommodate
Frog-friendly tunnels.
Frog-friendly culvert.
Yes, the loop road will be using the Ag Department entrance and going around the backside is the intention. But anyway, I did want to give you a copy of that map. It's as close to being approved as we've been in some time.
And just to comment on that, this does reflect a compromise. It's been stated time and time again by a certain organization that their input created a better design, and I would state unequivocally, this is not a better design. It is a compromise, and anybody that is in the airport business that takes a look at that design just shudders and shakes their head.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on to item number 15, appoint an additional member to the Community Corrections Partnership, CCP.
This request comes through the AB 109 legislation. The committee, this Community Corrections Partnership Committee, has inclusion of Superior Court Judge, it's the DA, There's a number, there's community outreach, there's a list here, as you can see. I won't quote all of them, but the bottom line is that if you look at B, it says a county supervisor or the chief administrative officer for the county. So the request is to either appoint a board member or to appoint the CAO as the representative.
I would move to appoint the CAO as well.
Second.
I tried.
I was
Like
gonna,
you thought there was going to be something different.
Jay, I was
And
going
they
to be
meet
nice
in
first
16
and
minutes.
ask you. I was going to be nice first and ask you if this is something that you can fit in.
I certainly can.
Okay.
I've been nominated.
Okay. Any public comment on this? Hearing none, bring it back to the board. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So is there an alternate then?
In this case, I think Neil would end up being the alternate. He's on call right now. If we don't get out by 12, I may ask him to go, or I'll just be a little bit late. But we do meet at 12 today to set that in motion. It'll be the second meeting. And ultimately, there was, I think, from the formula, I saw $287,000 made to appropriate to Delaware County for this. I'm not certain if that's enough or what.
Of course
At this
it's not
point,
enough.
This,
But there's some creative ideas.
there are, and it's chaired by the chief probation officer, and there will be decisions made on allocation of money, so it's a fairly significant commission. And I will be back to the board if there are any issues that need to be brought before the board for decision-making.
This is not just about how to spend $287 to keep people behind bars. This is about how to really turn the curve and deal with recidivism and going upstream.
That's
We need
why-
to ask ourselves, how's it working for us?
That's right.
The answer is it's not.
Well, and
Yeah,
that's why I'm
right.
pleased that Tom Kroll is the chair of this committee.
And this is based on a lot of the training and a lot of the philosophies that probation locally is currently using, so Tom's a good one to be in charge of that.
Okay, we don't need to pull the vote, do we?
Direction?
We can just give
You know,
you.
well, you probably should,
we-
for an appointment, you
We got a
should.
motion.
Yeah, we got a motion.
Yeah, second.
Yeah, you should.
Okay. Yes, we have a motion and a second. But are you telling me to pull the vote, or it's just all in favor?
Aye.
Favor.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
You don't get to vote.
No?
No. Item number 16, approve and authorize chair to sign the Fifth Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding between Tri-Agency Economic Development Authority and County of Del Norte. for
So
3 years.
moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment?
How do you misplace an amendment?
I don't know.
I'm not sure, just never made it all the way through the system, and our auditor
Just
did,
take the fifth.
our auditor did catch it, so we're trying to tidy up the contractual pieces.
Unintended.
Did I have a motion and a second?
Yep,
Yep.
you did.
Then I will bring it back, and you had no public comment, I will bring it back to the board. Any further discussion, questions for Mr. Renfro? Hearing none.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do we have to?
Do we have to pull that?
Yeah,
I was getting that look.
I was trying to convey it, yeah. Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingsen?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes.
Supervisor Finigan?
Yes.
Supervisor McNamer?
Yes. Item number 17, approve the plans and specification and contract documents for the Northwest Drive Sewer Extension Project and authorize staff to advertise for bids as requested by the Deputy Director of Engineering and Roads. This has
Right
been a
on.
long
Long
time.
It's just
coming.
amazing how long
Coming.
it takes.
It's about time.
I move to
What
approve.
started this?
What a great project, yeah.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none. Bring it back to the board. Do we need to pull this
Yeah.
one, plans and specifications?
Supervisor Hemmingsen?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Finigan?
Yes.
Supervisor McNamer?
Yes. Legislative and budget issues. Consider miscellaneous legislative and budget matters pertinent to the County of Del Norte.
The letter that Zach gave us, I think we should probably send that off with the
corrections.
amendments and corrections that he put in there.
Did you get a copy?
I haven't yet.
There you go.
As far as the, well, Supervisor Finigan went over a lot of what's happening legislatively. As far as the budget, we continue to work on proposals and a recommended budget with, again, a lot of unknowns. What was discussed earlier regarding the backfilling of the VLF, I don't know what's scarier, whether it would be backfilling with general fund money now and waiting to see what happens with a vote and then having mid-year cuts, or dealing with an all-cuts budget right now. I'm hoping for something that's a lot more reasonable than that. We may see by tomorrow that there's something passed. We have some alternatives for closing our gap that we currently have, but it doesn't necessarily get us all the way, and we're also preparing for that worst-case scenario, and departments are going to come back with their recommended or requested budgets that show cuts that can be fairly drastic at that point, but they are at this point proposals and requests. We certainly, as we work on this, we would try to have what a recommended budget as close to balanced as possible, but I don't know that it's even possible at that point. Our timeline will be so short to deal with these issues. Once the state passes theirs, I would suspect we'll have an unbalanced recommended for approval, not adoption, and then we'll work on the final budget shortly after that. But we'll see what happens with the state, and we will continue to work on it with the different departments. We've put some proposals out before the bargaining units and have some of them on board, and we're waiting to hear from the others. We're in negotiations tomorrow morning and Thursday morning with the different associations and union, and we'll see how they react at that point, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Jay. And you're up again.
Capital projects.
Madam Chair, before we leave legislation, I told you I wasn't going to go through a lot of it because here's a perfect example of why. There was over a couple thousand pieces of legislation that had no analysis for the budget impact, and while they can't even work on a budget, they want to pass those. Senate Bill 726, authored by Barry Hill, has to do with fire suppression sprinkler systems, and it would authorize a county by ordinance or resolution to opt out and not be subject to the regulations published in the state building codes regarding sprinkler systems in a single-family residential dwelling. Sounds great, right? Something we'd like. Barry Hill's a Republican. Doesn't stand a chance. However, Barry Hill is also one of the ones that may flip to pass the budget as a Republican siding with the Democrats, which would then put it back in play. So,
It's an important one.
and it's an important one. So, part of the problem is some of these Republicans, and there's only a couple, could write their own ticket for what they want to do for their constituents, and they still won't jump yet. And so that's why I'm not going to report on any of the legislation.
David, is it only sprinkler systems? That's the only thing they're picking out of this?
For residential.
Well, there's other issues. That's
There
the
are.
only thing
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's the only thing they're picking out of it. 'Cause
Not
there's
the
some
green
other-
standards, just the sprinkler systems.
Well, there was the moisture content, I think,
Right.
and the landscaping stuff, and I mean, it just goes on and on and on, but that's the only thing they're picking out of this
Right. And it probably won't pass.
for these one-size-fits-all.
By the way, when we ran into Governor Brown at the restaurant, Barry Hill was there.
Well, yeah.
So,
You can buy him enough cocktails and enough sushi.
Okay, Jay.
Pleased to report that all of the Prop 40 projects are now complete. I would like to thank the road department for jumping in at the last minute to assist us in getting a considerable number of picnic tables and fire rings put together and set before the inspector got here.
We appreciate it.
They certainly helped out, along with Alder Camp, helped out parks in getting those done. They weren't complete at that point, and they did get those all done, in between getting some paving done on some of the county roads. So I appreciate that, and we'll use them again if we have some grant money that we can put back towards the road department. Point St. George Cultural Report is complete. We'll be going out for an RFP for the final tasks soon, because we've got to have it done by the end of the year.
taken almost as long as that sewer project.
Yeah, well, yes, it's been a lot of years, and hopefully that'll be the end of that first period, first end of those tasks. Battery Point, we're preparing the RFP, should get that out, so we hope to get that underway and get under construction as soon as we can. That one's taken longer because it's the complications in regards to the RFP, trying to either split it up or put them together, and the different types of expertise it requires to fix the cap. So we're dealing with electricians and the other stuff, but it's going. It will be done. And I think at that point, we'll figure that's it for capital projects right now.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would request that we get direction from the board to have staff work with me on that Hyuchi parcel of land that's not technically a park, but it's county-owned right now, and it's fenced in, but right now, there's not really a plan for it, so.
We tried one time.
Yeah, well, I'd like to put it back up on the calendar.
The neighborhood said, don't you do it.
Yeah, perhaps you could start with a public meeting if that never.
Well, it would be part of it, is public meeting, get input, so, but I think right now, it's just kind of this out in.
They were worried about
Neverland, yeah.
transients.
Yeah.
Did you get that, Jay? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Jeff, don't leave.